From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.
Good day. This is Dateline Malacañang. Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. on Thursday signed into law Republic Act 12233, or the Judiciary Fiscal Autonomy Act, a measure defining the scope and extent of the judiciary's fiscal independence as a co-equal branch of government. The new law, signed in a ceremony in Malacañang before lawmakers and Supreme Court or SC officials and personnel, affirms the constitutional provision that the judiciary's budget cannot be reduced below the previous year's allocation and must be automatically and regularly released after congressional approval. Under the measure, the SC may submit its original budget proposal directly to Congress as an attachment to the National Expenditure Program or NEP prepared by the Department of Budget and Management or DBM, which may submit its comments separately. President Marcos said the new law would allow funds to be disbursed to the judiciary automatically. The law also establishes a judiciary trust fund to replace the Judiciary Development Fund, pooling all legal fees, existing resources, and income from deposits to be managed by the Chief Justice subject to the Commission on Audit's post-audit. The chief executive said the fund would allow the SC to reorganize offices, hire staff faster, and decentralize operations to bring services closer to the people. Congress ratified the final version of the bill, a consolidation of Senate Bill No. 2982 and House Bill No. 11358 on June 11, 2025.
Democracy can only take root when every Filipino is certain that the law is the same for all, and that those who create, enforce, and interpret these laws do so without fear, without favor, and without anyone holding them by the purse strings. Today, through the signing of the Judicial Fiscal Autonomy Act, we are putting safeguards in place so that the judiciary can work more efficiently and more independently. The Chief Justice is authorized to augment any item and modify through on-bank resolutions the allotment of funds within the bounds of the law to where they are most needed, whether that goes to hiring more personnel, repairing courtrooms, advancing their systems to keep up with their times. We are also establishing a judiciary trust fund so the courts can tap their collected funds to address urgent needs. The Supreme Court can reorganize its offices, hire staff faster, and bring services closer to the people by decentralizing operations. This law further strengthens the commitment of the executive to work alongside the judiciary as a co-equal branch of government. We recognize that each of us has a unique role, and yet we also have a shared responsibility to uplift Filipino people. Above all, let us always remember that even our smallest decisions can shape the lives of very many people and the future of the nation.
That was Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Thursday vowed to continue government relief and subsidy programs after a survey showed an increase in self-rated poverty among Filipinos. Palace Press Officer Claire Castro in a press briefing assured the public that anti-poverty and anti-hunger initiatives would be sustained. These include the Department of Social Welfare and Development or DPWH's Walang Gutom program, 50% fare discounts for student and senior citizens, the Benteng Bigas Meron Na program, and the Department of Education or DepEd's school feeding program. Castro said some measures, particularly the 20 peso per kilogram of rice, were only implemented recently and will take time to have a broader impact.
Kasi kailan lamang po din natin sinimulan ang murang presyo ng bigas at sabi nga po, nung nakaraang buwan, nag-report po ang DSWD, ang sinasabi po natin na pag-angat kaunti ng buhay ng ibang mga Pilipino ay nararamdaman because of the Walang Gutom program. So ito ay patuloy pa rin natin gagawin para mas maramdaman pa po na mas nakakarami.
According to Octo Research's latest survey, around 800,000 more Filipino families rated themselves poor in July, bringing the total to roughly 11.9 million. Octa said 45% of Filipino families now consider themselves poor, higher than the 42% recorded in April, which represented 11.1 million families.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Thursday said the proposed 1 peso fare increase for public utility jeepneys or PUJs would undergo a comprehensive review to determine its impact on commuters and operators. In a palace briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has tasked the entire economic team to study the proposal. She added that public consultations and hearings would also be held to ensure a balanced approach among stakeholders, including public utility vehicle or PUV drivers, operators, and commuters. Transport groups earlier sought a 1 peso increase in the minimum fare for jeepneys, citing rising fuel and maintenance costs. The current minimum fare for traditional jeepneys is 13 pesos for the first 4 kilometers.
Totoo po yan, pero ang direktiba po ng Pangulo, ito po ay aralin dahil marami pong maaapektuhan dito. Hindi lamang po ang DOTR ang siyang mag-decide dito, kundi po ang buong economic team para po malaman natin kung kakayanin din po ng ating taong bayan ang dagdag pamasahe. Muli magkakaroon naman po ito ng consultation at mga public hearings para po mas maging balanse for both or among the parties. Kasama na po yung PUV operators, drivers, pati po yung mga commuters.
That was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Malacañang said President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. has directed concerned agencies to conduct a thorough investigation into recent crimes involving students and teachers within school premises. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the president is fully aware of the spate of violence in schools and wants immediate action to address the issue. Castro emphasized the urgency of the investigation considering that the crimes involve minors and raise concerns about mental health among the youth. The palace official said President Marcos has already instructed the Department of Education or DepEd, Department of the Interior and Local Government or DILG, and the Philippine National Police or PNP to look into the crime incidents in schools. The DepEd has already ordered stricter school safety measures and reinforced preventive measures following growing concerns about school security in the wake of incidents of school-based violence.
Opo, inutusan na po ng Pangulong Marcos ang DepEd, DILG, PNP para po maisagawa ang masusing pag-iimbestiga patungkol po dito. Pati po ang DSWD ay tutulong po na makita at mamonitor kung ang child protection policy ng DepEd ay naisasagawa po sa bawat eskwelahan. So muli, kailangan po talagang maimbestigahan ganito, lalo po may mga minor de edad na nasasangkot po dito at nagiging issue na po talaga yung mental health sa mga kabataan. So, hindi po ito tutulugan at aaksyonan po ng mga concerned agencies. Agad-agad din po.
That was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Also on Thursday, Malacañang said the government's new online public grievance platform for ineffective flood control projects, Sumbong sa Pangulo, received more than 1,000 reports and 1,100 reports and over 800 feedback submissions within 3 days of its launch. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said that from August 11th to the 13th, the website sumbongsapangulo.ph logged 84,892 total views, 1,148 reports, and 823 feedback messages. Launched on August 11th, the platform allows citizens to directly raise complaints, concerns, or suggestions to President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and the Office of the President. The initiative aims to provide a centralized and accessible channel for the public to air grievances and give feedback on government services, particularly in flood control projects. Castro said President Marcos has instructed the Department of Public Works and Highways, or DPWH, to blacklist contractors behind ineffective flood control projects. The president earlier said citizen participation is crucial in detecting anomalies and ensuring transparency in the implementation of the 545 billion peso flood control program since mid-July 2022 when his term started. The launch of the reporting platform follows the President's directive in his fourth State of the Nation address to audit flood control projects as the government vowed to improve transparency and ensure accountability in infrastructure spending. President Marcos has vowed to personally read the complaints as his government looks into questionable flood control projects across the country.
Sumbong sa Pangulo update, meron na po tayo lumalabas as of August 11 to 13, 2025. May 84,892 total views, may 1,148 reports, at may 823 feedbacks. Meron po tayo rito sa analytics at maaari ko po siguro sa inyo ito maibigay.
That was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Meanwhile, Malacañang said the ongoing investigation into alleged irregularities in flood control projects is not a witch hunt, but an effort to uphold transparency and accountability in government spending. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. will not act in haste, pending the results of the investigation into the flagged infrastructure projects for flood mitigation. Castro nevertheless assured the public that all officials who will be found negligent or involved in the anomalous flood control projects will face consequences after a fair and thorough investigation. She also urged the public to report irregularities through the newly launched Sumbong sa Pangulo website.
Ito nga po, kalulunsad lamang po ng Pangulo ang Sumbong sa Pangulo.ph website at doon lamang po nagkaroon ng inisyal na investigasyon. So, kung Lunes lamang po, ngayon pa lamang po tayo kumakalap ng mga reports, hindi naman po kaagad-agad dapat magsibak ang Pangulo kung wala naman pong ebidensya. Ulitin po natin, mahirap po yung tinatawag na witch hunt na dahil nasabi lang na palpak ang lahat or halos ng ibang mga proyekto patungkol sa flood control ay magsisibak na po ang Pangulo ng mga tauhan mula sa DPWH. Alamin po natin kung ano ang kanilang mga responsibilidad, kung ano man ang naging kanilang mga negligence at kung makikita po ng Pangulo agad-agad dito, hindi naman po mag-aatubili na sila ay sibakin sa pwesto.
That was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
Malacañang on Thursday defended the Office of the President or OP's proposed 4.5 billion peso confidential intelligence funds or CIF for 2026, citing its necessity for national security and proper utilization. In a press briefing, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said the allocation, nearly half of the 10.77 billion peso total CIF under the 2026 National Expenditure Program or NEP, is needed because the President is the Commander-in-Chief of the Uniformed Services and Chief Architect of national policy, including national security and foreign policy. Castro also dismissed criticism from former Finance Undersecretary Leo Magpayo, who questioned the President's moral authority to request large CIF allocation. The fund's alleged misuse in 2022 was among the grounds used to move to impeach Vice President Sara Duterte. Confidential expenses, according to a 2015 joint circular, pertain to surveillance activities in civilian government agencies, while intelligence expenses are those related to intelligence information gathering activities of uniformed and military personnel that have direct impact on national security.
Okay, tandaan po natin, ito naman din po ay nanggaling sa DBM, that the President is the Commander-in-Chief and the Chief Architect of National Policy or National Security and Foreign Policy. At kinakailangan po ng pondo ng Pangulo. Ang tandaan po natin, ang confidential funds o ang pera ay hindi naman masama kung ginagamit sa tama. Ang confidential funds or pondo ay nagiging masama kung ginagamit ng isang korap. Muli, ang Pangulo po ay Commander-in-Chief. At kung walang sinasabing moral ascendancy, tandaan natin kung tama naman po ang pag-report at ginamit sa tama, hindi po ito magiging questionable. Nagkakaroon lang naman po ng comparison dahil kung hindi ma-report ng tama at gumagamit ng mga certificate o iba-ibang mga resibo para lang sabihin na gamit ang confidential funds, yun ang difference.
That was Palace Press Officer Claire Castro.
Dateline Malacañang.
And finally, Philippine President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. and new United Nations Resident Coordinator in the Philippines, Arnold Peral, on Thursday, expressed their commitment to fostering stronger partnerships between the Philippines and the international body. The commitment was made during Peral's courtesy call on President Marcos at Malacañang Palace in Manila on Thursday. In a Facebook post, the Presidential Communications Office, or PCO, said President Marcos and Peral discussed ways to enhance collaboration between the Philippine government and the UN to advance the country's development agenda and accelerate progress toward achieving the Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs. Peral was named UN Resident Coordinator in the Philippines on February 1st with the approval of the host government. His career with the UN spans more than 25 years, including leadership roles as UN Resident Coordinator in Tunisia from 2020 to 2025, UN Resident Coordinator and UNDP Resident Representative in Ecuador, UNDP Country Director in Colombia, UNDP Deputy Resident Representative in Mexico and Brazil, Program Manager and Chief of Staff in UNDP's Regional Bureau for Latin America and the Caribbean in New York, and Program Officer in UNDP Cuba. Before joining the UN in 2000, Peral served as Cooperation Counselor for Scientific and Technical Cooperation in the French Embassy in Cuba. research assistant in the Ministry of Environment in France, and research assistant in public policy in the Ministry of Agriculture in Chile. Piral holds a master's degree in development economics from the University of Paris Aix-Nanterre and a bachelor's degree in economic policy from the University Pierre Mendès France, Grenoble. The UN is a firm partner of the Philippines in achieving national development goals and the 2030 Agenda, including the 17 SDGs. The SDGs are a global call to action to end poverty, protect the Earth's environment and climate, and ensure that people everywhere can enjoy peace and prosperity.
Dateline Malacañang.
Before we conclude our program, Radyo Pilipinas World Service of the Presidential Broadcast Service is live on audio streaming. Just download Evox PBS receiver on your Google Play Store or the App Store from your Apple phone. You can also visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Just type in and search for Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Kindly subscribe, like, and share our post as well. And that concludes this edition of Dateline Malacañang. For Radyo Pilipinas World Service, this is Leo Magpayo. Good day and stay safe.
From the Presidential Palace, Manila, Dateline Malacañang.